Hello everyone to the 52nd episode of Everyday Eternal. With me tonight, as usual, is my co-host Bob Huang.
Hello,
Say hello,
hello.
Bob.
I just got there.
Yeah, just arrived. It's very early in the morning for you, right?
Yeah, daylight savings is kind of a pain.
You had that. Oh, that's actually screwed up the schedule for our cast, but in the end it worked out for the better. And with us returning as a co-host tonight is our friend from Thailand, Eric, the terror of Magic Online, Landon. Hello, Eric. How's it going?
Hi. How's everyone doing today?
Pretty good.
Fine.
I see that you reclaimed the trophy leaderboard. Well done.
Was I ever not there?
No, I think last time we recorded, you were like tied or something.
Yeah, I think I went. I think after the podcast, I went and got a trophy, and then I was at the top.
Just like your casual Saturday afternoon or Saturday night.
You guys made me feel awful.
Do you think they will actually ever add something that's more than just an avatar? Like, what would be a cool thing to reward people who do well in the trophy race?
Wait, do you get an avatar? No, you don't.
No, you don't get an avatar.
I mean, you get one for getting a certain number of trophies, right? But it's very low.
Yeah, you do. I think you get one for 10.
Wait, which one do you
8.
get?
It's different.
I don't think I have that one.
It changes each season.
It's usually
got a color border around it.
Season ends.
Last time it was like I think a Jaya or a Nicol Bolas or something like that.
Cool. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
I did get that then. Yeah, I have a Nicol Bolas.
Yeah, that's for your trophies,
Nice.
I think.
In speaking of legacy, guys, first of all, I want to thank everyone who's listening because our last episode was by far the most listened to ever since I've been producing this podcast. Like, we only recently started tracking like listens, but from everything I've seen from recent episodes and before, the last one you also received the most feedback on, so thanks a lot. It really means a lot to us because, like I mentioned, the podcast is the one thing that we usually receive the least feedback on, and so many people who messaged us on Discord, on Twitch, even through email. That really means a lot to me, and I'm super, super thankful that you guys enjoyed this so much. Also, thanks for coming on, Bob and Eric. You guys really, really make this, and I think are a huge part why people enjoyed the last show. Especially the discussion we had last episode about the state of legacy. People enjoyed that quite a lot. So, speaking of legacy, one thing before we go into the actual content of the cast, do you guys actually know why legacy is called legacy?
It was voted on, and it won the vote.
Yeah, exactly. It was voted on in 2004. The concept of the format, which used to be called 1.5, has existed for many years before that. But in 2004, Aaron Forsyth was like, okay, actually, let's give all the formats proper names and let's have a vote on that. And Legacy is actually the option that came out ahead at 25.5%. So a quarter of the people who voted chose Legacy. But do you know what the second, the one that received 23.3%, we almost would have had a different name for the format. Do you guys have any idea what it would have been called?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's not classic, but it was I don't know. What was it?
It is traditional.
Traditional. Okay, I was
Traditional.
close. That sounds so bad. It sounds so boring.
I'm really into traditional magic.
Yes, traditional Magic where you put a Grizzlebrand in play on turn 1.
Super traditional.
Richard intended. In number 3, we actually had Renaissance.
Renaissance.
I could see that, but I guess it doesn't really make sense with an older format. I don't know. I feel like it would make sense for new modern, that they've been talking about doing. So I don't know.
Yeah, isn't there also a set called Renaissance, which would probably make it a little weird?
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure there's a re-release set, at least in Europe, not in the US.
Okay, yes, there might be something weird like that.
Yeah. And 4th place, Heritage, which probably works better than Renaissance. And 5th place, Throwback.
Throwback. Actually, that one makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, it makes much more sense than Renaissance, right?
So I know Legacy had a poll, but I don't think that Vintage had a poll. Did they? I don't know.
I actually don't know. Actually, let's find that out for the next episode.
I would have submitted Real as the name of the format. Real Magic.
Real Magic. So they had a couple of other submissions that got some votes, like ageless, and my favorite, comprehensive. Let's play some comprehensive Magic.
Jeez.
And there's timeless, mosaic, and enduring. Enduring only received 1.6% of the vote.
Yeah. Okay. So I did look it up. Apparently, vintage was, I guess it was like formally endorsed at the Magic Invitational, way back when they had that, where it was like they could like make the invitational card. So it was like in the 1990s, basically. So it was like named well before Legacy.
So it wasn't voted on. They just introduced it.
It doesn't say. It's just that vintage was formally endorsed. So I don't know if like players made it up first or if Wizards made it up first.
So in the comments on the vote of the format name, they got a couple of things they ruled out, and my favorite bullet point is the final one. Finally, we all had a good laugh over goofy names like overextended and hyperextended. We would like the format to be taken seriously. Let's play some hyperextended. That sounds like something from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Anyway, there have been some big Magic events on the weekend. The largest one probably being SCG Syracuse. Bob, you played in that, right?
Yep, I played Grixis Delver.
Oh,
good old Honda Civic. Yeah. It was funny because I talked to a lot of people leading up to the event. People were like, what are you playing? What do you think I should play? And I was like, every deck is like about the same level of good, so just play what you like to play. And like some people were like, what's your Grixis Delver list? So I sent it to a bunch of people and nobody played it, and everybody just played like Maverick or like whatever Stoneblade deck they like used to play like, you know, a long time ago. So
did you consider a couple of other decks, or was it pretty clear to you?
I looked at a bunch of decks. Like I considered Slow Depths, which I probably should have ended up playing. I considered like the Phoenix deck. I considered Blue White Delver. I think those were kind of the top few. I also looked at even like Sneak and Show. I don't know. It's pretty open right now.
So how did the tournament work out for you?
So had a really hot start. I started off 6-0, which was pretty nice. And then it was funny at the top tables, I saw a lot of Stoneblade. I saw Rudy playing Eric's new pet deck, the Epic Thief. He actually started off 7-0, but then he ended up 7-2. But the cut for day 2 was 6-2-1, and I only went 6-3. I lost my last 3 rounds to not quite make the squeeze. And going back, looking at the results, I did not realize this, but basically what had happened on Magic Online the week before was Blue White Stoneblade did well in the challenge. There were like 2 copies in the top 8. Grixis Delver started playing like Confidants to like kind of combat Combo and Blue White, but I just didn't really like Confidant because I thought it was good against Combo and Blue White, but it was like literally really bad everywhere else because it just like literally does you like 2 damage every turn. It's like a one-sided Sulfuric Vortex, so I didn't like that build of Grixis Delver. But so yeah, Stoneblade did really well, and then people actually just immediately picked it up for the Open, and it had a really strong weekend. Like Blue White Delver, Blue White Stoneblade, along with the Slow Depths deck, I would say are kind of the story of the tournament. Like those decks really pushed out the Chalice decks, to the point that like Moon Stompy, which had been doing really well on Magic Online, was not seen very much in Syracuse. So I think that was like the major metagame trend, was like these Blue-White Stoneblade decks and depths like being really good against the Chalice decks. And then so that meant that like if all these Blue-White decks were playing like back to basics, the best Delver decks were like the 2-color ones, so like Blue-White Delver and Blue-Red Delver, just because they were a lot more resilient to back to basics.
So would you say that Blue-White Delver especially is here to stay, or is it just like a flavor of the month?
I think it's probably closer to flavor of the month, because like it actually, so it does make sense like depending on the metagame, like but now like I think the Blue-White Stoneblade deck is just very good against the Blue-White Delver deck, because like in like the Blue-White Delver mirror, you like side out your Delvers, they just like don't do anything, they just like don't really impact the game that matters, which is True Name and Stoneforge. So like the Blue-White Stoneblade deck just has a natural advantage, and it gets to play like cards like Supreme Verdict that are also pretty hard for Delver Secrets to interact with. So I think that like the Delver Blade deck made sense for a little bit, but if it depends on how much combo there is. Basically the Delver list is a little bit better against combo than the Stoneblade list. So it could be around to stay, but I just feel like the actual Stoneblade list is much better in the mirror.
Yeah, I agree that Blue White Diver, it never really struck me as like a really powerful deck, even though I can see the appeal of it, because something I like about it, I think it has an easier time sideboarding into an actual mid-range / control deck than most other Diver decks, I would think. But Eric, what's your take on the new Blue White Diver and Blue White Stoneblade resurgence, I wanna say?
Well, I think that the Blue White Delver deck, kind of like what Bob said, is probably a flavor of the month. I think that if you're going to be playing Delver, that a more aggressive approach that isn't playing white is probably better. And if you're going to be playing white, that a slightly grindier approach like Stoneblade is probably better. Just on paper and my experience playing against them and playing with them in the past a long time ago, that's how those decks kind of seem to play out in the long run. So I think that's probably the way it will end up currently as well.
Both of you guys think that Blue White Stoneblade, which like used to be a pretty reasonable deck in Legacy many years ago, is actually becoming a real force again. And you mentioned that it's also because they are doing reasonably well against most Diver decks as well as Chalice. What actually makes them so good against Chalice decks? Like looking at them, I see their mana cost, their mana curve is probably a little higher, since I can't even say, like, I guess it also helps out that the mana base is less vulnerable to Blood Moon, with like 6 basics and a lot of ways to fetch them, like only a 2-color deck. They only play 2 Tundras or something sometimes, I see.
Yeah,
so what makes them so reasonable?
Well, it's funny because like we say Chalice decks, but like Moon Stompy is just by far the most successful Chalice deck lately, because I think it's good against like the other Chalice decks as well, because it plays Blood Moon. So like in order to combat that, how you do that is just like you play a ton of basic lands, which is what the Blue-White Stoneblade deck is able to do. Plus, added to the fact that Stoneforge Mystic, most Chalice decks like just don't really have an answer to it. Like maybe there's a few cards like green has like, I don't know, maybe Reclamation Sage, red has like Fiery Confluence, but like you can just like counter those spells because they're kind of clunky.
Also, the strategy itself, you just generally need to land like a True Name Nemesis and equip it, and then you beat like Eldrazi or Stompy or any of the Stompy decks pretty much. And and the basics help a lot against mono red.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't actually think that the deck is any better than it used to be. I think it's probably just depends on how frequently people think they're going to be facing Cooligan's Command, which right now is probably not very much. And in the past, people were sick and tired of getting their Stoneforge Mystic out grinded or out card advantage by Cooligan's Command very regularly. But I don't think it was that bad in that meta either, other than the fact that that one card was played more than it is right now.
Yeah, we don't really get to see a lot of like Grixis control, formerly like Check Pile control, the 4-color control deck. Looking at the Syracuse Day 2 metagame, I'm seeing Grixis Delver at 9, Miracles at 9, Golgari Depth at 7, Blue White Delver 5, Dragon or Moonstompy at 3. Actually, Grixis Control at 2. It's on the same level as like Maverick and Goblins.
Yeah. I have to say that like Grixis Delver numbers are a little bit misleading, because I have to guess on day 1 Grixis Delver is probably more played than all of these other decks. I could be wrong about that, so I don't know. I feel like it just did not have a very good weekend. It feels pretty weak to the blue-white back to basics decks, but I do like it against blue-white Delver.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell when you only see the number in day 2, and even though it's the most played deck, it might not have a very good conversion rate based on how many people actually played it on the first day. So when you look at something like, I don't know, what is there? Well, it's so hard to tell because the numbers are so small. When you see like Maverick putting 2 into day 2, like assuming like not a lot of people played Maverick in the first place, or Goblins putting 2 into day 2, assuming like, I don't know, 5 people played, then that would be.
I bet not even 5 people. I bet that's 100% day 2 rate right there. Goblins is. I misjudged the Goblins from the last podcast apparently.
A friend of mine actually started playing a weird version of Goblins. It plays no Wiles, it plays no Lackeys, and we played against him on our Tuesday night Legacies at the bar, and he destroyed everyone. Like, he won the Goblin Mirror super handily, he destroyed Neon Elves, he destroyed Maverick, he destroyed, like, every deck that was not a combo deck.
Actually, I can confirm that there were at least 3 Goblins players because I beat one in round 1, and it was actually a pretty interesting situation. So basically, I was playing Grixis Delver, who's on Goblins. He had Ether Vial and Rashad and Port going. And so for like turn 2 and turn 3, he was just upticking his Vial and porting me every turn. On turn 4, and basically on turn 2 and turn 3, what he would do is he'd be like, go, upkeep, port you. So on turn 4, he says go, I untap, draw, play my land, and then he's like, oh wait, I want to port you. And I was like, well, okay, I think it's a little late. But
how does that confirm a third Goblins player? I still think that we have 100% day 2 rate. That guy just went on and won every round after that.
Well, he was not in day 2, so I can confirm that that it was not him. So we call a judge over. Judge comes over and he asks, like, what had been happening in prior turns, and basically the judge ruled that like my opponent said that basically it was what he meant to do, and I agree that that's what he meant to do, but he also said that he forgot. So that was that. But basically, the judge ruled that like I didn't give him an opportunity to port me. So they rewound by choosing a card at random from my hand to put on top of my library. And keep in mind, on turn 2 and 3, like turn 2 when he ported me, I cast Thought Scour. Turn 3 he ported me, I cast Brainstorm. And then this turn 4, I wasn't going to cast anything, but like hypothetically, what if they put like a Lightning Bolt on top of my deck that I would have wanted to cast, for example. And just the fact that I like don't cast anything also kind of gives him some free information now that like it's possible that none of those cards are in my hand if it makes sense to cast them in that spot. So it was kind of frustrating because it didn't end up mattering, but like it definitely seemed like I was punished for my opponent forgetting to do something, given the new take back rules. And like I talked to a different judge after, and he was like, I probably would have ruled differently. I would have appealed if like I think it would have like affected the game, but I was just like, I don't really care. Let's just play. But yeah, I don't know. I want to hear your guys' take on that.
So for me, there's a couple of things going on. First of all, if your opponent actually says that he literally forgot, I think that's always like a red flag for judges, where it's like, okay, you admit that you actually forgot to do it. So in that case, I would like lean towards like leaving the game state as is. It's probably something you shouldn't say if you want to get the ruling on your side, unless of course it's the truth, which it seems to be. The other thing is, I think they have a couple of weird timing rules these days. For example, if you're like in the main phase and you want to go to like beginning of combat but not to declare attackers, now you can't just say like pass priority, and then if they pass back, I think they actually have like a couple of weird things that you literally have to announce if you want to do something on the next phase or something. So like also when people want to do something on your upkeep, I read a couple of policies where you have to actually state in your own end step at least that you want to do something on the opponent's upkeep, which is also like all of that is actually giving away information that you wouldn't be giving away on, for example, in a Perfect World on Magic Online. But in practice, it usually doesn't really happen like that. In practice, people just like wait until the exact step and then they like raise their hand and shout like, hey, I want to do something. On the other hand, something that I've grown to do to like actually protect myself from a situation like you encountered, I always say upkeep, untap, upkeep, draw with like a question mark in my eyes and look at the opponent, and then if they like shrug or whatever, I mean, in a way it reminds them of, oh, maybe I want to port. On the other hand, it also protects me from like people being like, hey, wait, I want to do something and let's back up, and like having a judge not rule in your favor. But especially since your opponent literally said he forgot about doing something in your upkeep, I think you could have probably had the appeal on your side. I think that's the thing that definitely tips it in your favor. Also, the thing like putting back the random card, I can totally see how that would actually be like an actual punishment, like where you really didn't do anything wrong and could like backfire pretty hard.
Exactly.
Imagine they wanted to surgically you for something, I don't know, like there's many scenarios where this could actually like, imagine they put the land on top and for whatever reason they surgically you and you're like screwed and it's like, what?
Right, so you didn't get to like see my hand or anything, but like it definitely still could be a downside.
Yeah.
I don't like that they do the take backs. Like, it reminds me a little bit of something that happened to me at a tournament in Beijing where I saw Julian. Where my opponent, and this was before the take back rules, where my opponent forgot to take the surgical extracted the card that they targeted was Surgical Extraction out of my graveyard. After they had, shuffled my deck, I had shuffled it, everything had been presented. They'd seen my hand, they'd seen my deck, and then and they admitted to the judge that they had forgotten to take it out of the graveyard, but the judge decided to rewind the game to the point where I was casting the spell and then they were casting the Surgical so that they could take it out, which to me was, it cost me the match, and it would have cost them the match, and it was definitely their mistake, not mine. And I feel like if you make a mistake in a competitive tournament, like, you shouldn't be rewarded for the person who didn't make the mistake shouldn't be punished for the person's mistake, basically.
Yeah. I totally agree. I just think in general there's a problem with like us not living in a perfect world, and people, like, to a certain degree there will always be doubts until a judge I think if a judge actually watched, for example, what happened to you in Beijing, and he actually had seen that, he would have probably ruled in your favor, I'm pretty sure.
No, they told me that they understood this. I checked with them that they understood the situation before I decided to say, all right, fine. They understood the situation, and they understood that the guy made a mistake, and they were they said, we're just going to rewind the game then. And I asked why, and they said because it feels too bad or something like that. Basically.
Okay. My understanding of the situation back then was that the judge actually felt there might have been some minor miscommunication, that they couldn't make sure what actually had happened. Because, like, the way you describe it, and, like, if the judge has actually perfect information and understands what's going on, I think if you, like, appeal to, like, somebody who's confident in making, like, a ruling, then they might do it.
There wasn't a miscommunication, because the guy that I was playing against spoke English, and I could tell, based on what he said to me and to the judges, that there was no miscommunication, that we both presented the exact same situation, which is what happened, and the judges decided that they would rewind the game and let him fix his mistake.
That's why I think, like, if it had happened, like, for example, like, okay, let's shoot for the moon at a PT or a Mythic Championship, and you had appealed to the head judge, I could very well see this being ruled in your favor.
I think it would too, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I remember you were pretty bummed about that back then, but I hope you...
Yeah, and then I went on to the next round. I played terribly, so I dropped.
Oh, by the way, did you actually get that 5-0 you played against Pilgrim's Eye?
No, I don't want to talk about it. I lost. They were a reanimator deck with Containment Priest. I lost for the 5-0.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's the new meta. It's the new tech, Pilgrim's Eye.
How is that That's not reanimator. What do you mean?
For those of you who don't know, I think Pilgrim's Eye is it like a 2-1?
It's like a 3-mana 1/1.
Here, I'll tell you their hand and the board state in game 3 that I lost. Game 1 I lost because I just couldn't find my mana. But game 3, they have Wasteland, Field of Ruin, Scrubland, Plains, Ethersworn Canonist, a Recruiter, and a Containment Priest in play. And in their hand, and in their graveyard, they have a Fairy Macabre and a Council's Judgment. And in their hand, they have Council's Judgment, Custody Leech, Squire, Endless Atlas, Fairy Macabre, Necromancy, right. Sun Titan, Swords to Plowshares. Sorry.
That actually sounds like that Emeria deck that people try to make.
I think it sounds like a modern deck.
And I tried to reanimate their Fairy Macabre to kill myself, and they Fairy Macabre it, so I couldn't kill myself.
Wow.
This is how they don't allow prisoners to commit suicide, so they can actually hang them. Anyway, going back to where were we?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
So Bob was talking about his experience at the SCG Syracuse, where he didn't day 2. But Bob, did you play like anything spicy? Did you play like, I think people call it Terramander, even though I insist on calling it Terramander?
It's definitely Terramander, for the record. But I never... Oh, not in my list. I disliked the card. I've never played it because I think it's bad. I think it's good in like specific decks. So for example, like in Standard, it's good in the Mono Blue Tempo deck. In Modern, it's good in the Arclight Phoenix deck because those decks put a lot of instant sorcerers in their graveyard. And the Legacy, I don't feel like there's too much of a home for it, but obviously it put 2 copies in the top 8. I do like it with Light Up the Stage because Light Up the Stage is like a really powerful card. It's just the 1 mana draw 2, and Terramander is like the best at enabling it because it just like starts with flying. So I do like it in that deck in Legacy, but in general, I dislike the card because I think it's just like very hard to turn on. Like usually you're turning it on like turn 4, so if you just have a 1/1 for the first 3 turns, that's like kind of embarrassing, in my opinion.
I think you have to compare it to Tombstalker, not Delver, basically.
Okay, but then you're like, I mean, like people are playing 4 of them, so you're just playing like these 4 cards that like don't really do anything until turn 4.
I think as a 1 or a 2 of, it's a little bit better than I had originally given it credit for, but not as a 4 of in any deck. Even for Light Up the Stage, I don't think that's I don't think Light Up the Stage is quite good enough to play 4 Terramanders.
I think the card you want to compare it to is Zombie Fish, Gormak Angler, actually. That's the card.
But it flies. It's a little harder to cast,
yeah.
And it flies. So I think it's easier to compare it to Tombstalker. And then you got to evaluate what it's better than Tombstalker against and what it's worse against. So
I think it's much better than Tombstalker.
It's not much better though, because it gets hit by Chalice of the Void and it gets hit by things like Lightning Bolt and things like that too. So
and Red Elemental Blast.
And Red Elemental Blast.
But it also pitches to Force, even though that argument is not very big.
But that doesn't make it much better.
Yeah, but like the other big thing, also Abrupt Decay is a big one.
Yeah.
The other big thing is just that like you can cast Gurmag Angler on like turn 2 with a Thought Scour, and like Terramander, like even in the ideal scenario, I think like turn 3 would be the earliest.
Yeah, but I mean, you're also it also comes with like a shock attached to it if you play it on like turn 1 or something. Basically, you're gonna get a couple points of damage.
I don't think that's worth much.
I think it's okay as a 1 or 2.
Kind
I think it's a little better than I thought.
In the is it Delver list, Blue Red Delver that Rich Kelly won the tournament with, I think it works really well. Like Bob mentioned, it does enable Light Up the Stage. Like whether the card is good enough or not, I don't know. I kind of like Light Up the Stage, especially since you can also cast Force of it. I don't know. I'm pretty high on Terramander if it comes to me. Like I didn't think that card would be really good, but I actually do kind of like it as a 4-off in a very aggressive deck with Light Up the Stage. I can see not running it like in Grixis Delver, even though I would still like need to compare it to Gurmag Angler. Gurmag Angler to me has never been that great, but
I mean, you play elves.
You know what's probably better as a 4-of though for Light Up the Stage is Mausoleum Wanderer.
What? Isn't that the white card?
No, it's blue.
No, that's like the 1 mana 1/1 spirit. No, it's like Spell Pierce for its power, and then the power goes up for each spirit.
The one you can sacrifice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Blue-White Spirits is like pretty close to being playable in Legacy.
But you also think that Slivers is like playable, right?
Yes. Well, this is crazy. I just think almost everything is like... Okay, so it depends on what your definition of playable is. Like, in my opinion, a good deck can win around 70% of the time, and I think these playable decks can win like 60% at least, maybe 65%. So, I don't know. That makes them sort of playable. And they can be like favored against the 70% decks too, so it's just like it kind of just depends on a lot. Like Slivers, like I'll talk about Slivers all you want, Julian, because Julian just 5-0'd with Merfolk and or Elves, and I was like, play Slivers. But yeah, I think Slivers is like really good against the blue fair decks. It might not be good against Stoneblade, so maybe that'd be a reason not to play it.
I don't know, in the last year I have lost an actual sanctioned game, not match, to Slivers. And Gale Rider Sliver, to me, that's like the one thing that puts them over the top. Like 1 mana, Winged Sliver, what the fuck? What's going on?
That card is really good. It also makes it so that the depths matchup is favorable, because they can just like never attack through it, because their Slivers are all different colors, and you just like, you have like 4 5/5s, and they're just like immediately dead.
Oh god, now I really want to play Slivers. I guess the mana base is gonna be a mess, and you're gonna lose to Blood Moon every single time. But
yeah, Moon Stompy is your worst matchup for sure.
Wait, they have Vial, don't they?
They have Vial and Force of Will, but like if any Moon effect resolves, none of your lands do anything, and all you have is Ether Vial.
Yeah, so you're putting in a 2/2 every turn. It's great.
I mean, it's still your worst matchup.
All right.
Are you gonna stream with Slivers? Are we gonna see you at GP Niagara Falls?
I don't know. I've been there's a challenge coming up.
It's your worst matchup. What about Storm?
You have a sideboard, so like you can play like Chalice of the Void, Leyline of the
Yeah.
Void.
You play like 15 sideboard cards against Storm.
Yeah, you basically play 15 Hate Bears and like Chalice Leyline. Like that's your sideboard. 15
You
Hate
should
Bears
put
/
Goblin
Chalice
Rabble
Leyline.
Master in your sideboard for the mono
To beat
red.
the Moon deck. I don't think a turn 3 Rabble is good against like a turn 1 Rabble.
Okay, a Braid. Oh wait, no, that doesn't work.
I mean, it's a card you can't cast unless they have the Blood Moon, and it also doesn't kill the Blood Moon. I don't know.
It
Alright, I think
Megas
we've
of the
been long
Moon. It's
enough
for the
on
Megas
Slivers.
of the Moon. Alright, I
They
thought we
help
were going to
out
talk about
those
Slivers.
creature decks quite a lot if they actually printed Thalia like as a changeling. Imagine they printed Thalia as a changeling. They sometimes print these things that like can become a lord for any tribe for like 3 mana. Maybe they should do that for Thalia. But yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Speculation. What do you
Well,
guys
okay, let's
think?
talk about other decks you guys have been playing. Like, Julian, what did you think of Merfolk?
I think Merfolk is probably the most or second most underrated deck in Legacy right now. It's a toss-up between Maverick, which I think is very, very good. It's like one of the upper tier 2 decks, but I've been saying that for quite a while. Merfolk has felt surprisingly good compared to like the little credit people give it. Half of your matches, I have to admit, you win because you are playing like virtually like 8 True Name Nemesis, because you play like the 4 Phantasmal Images, which make it so that like the drawback doesn't matter once you copy True Name Nemesis. And Merfolk Trickster has helped it out also like big time. We're not playing Wasteland anymore. Oh god, I'm already associated. Like I'm actually in the Merfolk Discord, and we had a huge discussion on that. Anyway, so Merfolk Trickster is a card that helps you out as well. That like, for example,
It's good against Emrakul.
It's good against Emrakul, it's good against Marat Lage, and in combination with Phantasmal Image, like I've had them. I tapped down their Marat Lage with Trickster, and then I copied it with Phantasmal Image and killed them with it. It's like there's so many crazy things you can do with that card. I even like my favorite thing that I even posted to Twitter. I played against. Oh, Eric, I played against you, right?
Yeah.
I tapped down an Icarus. So it actually didn't die at the end of turn, and then I copied it with Phantasmal Image, which got haste and attacked for lethal.
You also
That's
would have had
amazing.
lethal though if you didn't do that.
Yeah, there were a couple of different ways I could have gone about that, but I really wanted to kill you with
I know.
Icarus.
That was funny.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at your list, Julian. It looks like you cut Curse Catcher for little Ben.
Ben has been surprisingly good to me. Like, Curse Catcher has been a mainstay in Merfolk for like a decade at this point, but Ben has been really good. Like I mean, you still get in early damage, like you do with Curse Catcher, but now in the late game you can actually loot, which doesn't sound great, but sometimes Merfolk really is just like one top deck away from taking the games, because most of the games you win, you either win in the landslide, or you barely get there. And like the looting ability helps out a lot, especially with flooding as well, and drawing extra not chalices, wilds. I actually cut chalice. I really don't like it. It's just like such a huge tempo loss. I tried out standstill, like people used to play 10 years ago. It was okay, but overall I really like the dismembers. The dismembers helped out like clearing the path and like sometimes even just buying time. I'm rather highish on the list, and yeah, I would definitely recommend playing the list as is, pretty much.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I've tried Merfolk in the past. I was trying the Chalice versions. The issue I had was just like, yeah, like you had good draws, but like a lot of the times your deck was just like, okay, let me just do these 2 things, and then like if they don't work, I just lose. So I just found it like wildly inconsistent, basically.
Yeah, the actual consistency of the deck comes from, to me, True Name Nemesis. There's so many matches where I just like land True Name Nemesis into True Name Nemesis, and while everything else is crumbling and coming down alongside me, like I'm sitting in my house, I'm like, oh, this is fine, and I just like tap my True Names, and they actually get there. This is the deck that has actually taught me how stupid True Name Nemesis is as a card. Like when I play Elves and I play against True Name, sometimes it's annoying when they get equipment on it, but then usually you can sometimes even raise them. But when you play this True Name Nemesis deck against actual mid-range legacy decks that don't have like combos or anything to blow you out, that are just looking to get incremental advantage like Maverick, yeah, it's such a pain in the ass for Maverick, even though I very much like Maverick over Merfolk in that matchup. But that's a stupid card, and I think it actually is the card that makes the deck. Otherwise, the deck would probably be just like Slivers. Like we were actually talking about Slivers versus Merfolk, but let's not get too deep into that.
Actually, So yeah, someone like suggested that like True Name could be printed in Modern Horizons, and I was just like, why would that be anything that like anybody would want to touch with a 10-foot pole? Like Wizards has literally come out and said that like True Name is a mistake, and that they're looking to print more cards like Containment Priest in these supplemental sets for Legacy, because those are like kind of in general printing answers is safer than printing threats. Which, by the way, I think we should talk about briefly at least. Wizards announced a new set called Modern Horizons, and it's going to be basically no cards from Modern, like no cards that are currently legal in Modern, but cards that are legal in Legacy that will become legal in Modern, plus new printings which will be legal in Legacy and Modern. So I'm pretty excited for this. Like, they've already spoiled a couple cards, and it seems like the power level is going to be pretty pushed, and they're going to try to make it have like a big impact in Modern. But I think it'll also more likely than any other set at least, have an impact on Legacy.
You think if they come up with new cards, I would very much be looking forward to that, to see what they would actually like print that could shake things up in Legacy. Like, is there anything you could see? Like, they always end up printing like new humans, new elves, even that's what you see, and then maybe some kind of answer cards that Modern currently lacks. Like, people were even speculating about like I don't know, a weaker version of Forceful or something that might actually, but actually if they print something, it's probably only gonna find its way into show and tell decks or something. I don't know. Like, with regards to Legacy, I hope there's gonna be something that we can use in fair decks, not something like Grizzlebrand, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, we're like mostly all for that. We want, okay, so like Legacy, the format is basically Chalice decks, Brainstorm decks, and combo decks. And whenever it's something that's like not those three, then I think it adds diversity. So like cards like Green Sun Zenith, Sylvan Library, Thalia to an extent, like cards that hurt those other decks, or add consistency to those, or hurt those decks that I mentioned earlier, and then add consistency to decks that aren't in the decks that I mentioned earlier. Like, those are the cards that we really are looking for, I think.
In speaking of that, why is Green Sun Senate actually banned in Modern? Like, I know why it was banned back after Pre-T Philly, because it was like 5th to 8th copy of Primeval Titan. But do you think it's a safe unban for Modern? Like, I feel it might actually be, and I'm totally biased because I'm also looking forward to hopefully getting Viable Symbiote for Modern, and then like maybe running Green Sun Senate and playing actual elves in Modern. But
Natural Order.
Would it be like that bad for Modern?
Natural Order, no thanks.
Maybe they'll look at Deathrite Shaman.
I mean, there's a good chance they print Containment Priest in the new set because Dredge and Phoenix are so big. So maybe they could print Natural Order, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want Natural Order. That would probably actually, because that would actually almost port the entire F stack except for Limbs, which I think
that's what my joke was.
Yeah, well, Cradle too, Cradle as well.
Cradle,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But they're gonna print. They're gonna print these
Symbiote.
cards in the new Modern set, right? Is Cradle on the reserve
It
list?
seems it gets reprinted.
Hopefully not too much.
When is the set coming out? I think it's coming out in June or July, right?
Yeah, so it's coming out after all of this. So I think it's like the order is like, I want to say Legacy GP, and then it's the PT.
The Modern Pro Tour in London.
Yeah. So
I'm
yeah,
pretty
it's
sure
the Legacy
it's a
GP,
June.
and then the PT, and then Modern Horizons is released. But the PT is gonna test the new Mulligan rule, which also, by the way, Julian, you said that you played at a bar. Tell us about your thoughts on it.
We liked it quite a lot. I gotta add,
We being the Elves player.
Yeah.
No. The Elves player, the Goblins player, the Merfolk player. We had a real tribal gathering going on.
All the tribal decks were really happy with the new.
We didn't really have any.
Oh look, I have Ether Vial in my hand again.
So lucky. No, it just felt like you felt much worse about mulliganing. Because most of the time you actually got to play games, and I mean that's the intention in the first place of the rule, and like the counter argument for that, of course, is gonna be that you will also have a lot more non-games. But like speaking from the perspective,
did people play combo decks or Chalice decks? That's what I'm most curious about.
people played 4-color Loam, but no actual combo decks outside of Fs if you wanna qualify that as a combo deck, and that's what I want to say. Like, we didn't have those we didn't have Black Red Reanimator or like Eldrazi or Blood Stompy. No, Blood Moon Stompy.
Blood Stompy. I like that name better.
I mean, people sometimes play Blood Sun, right? I've seen that red Eldrazi deck that plays Blood Sun. That's right. But yeah, so from the perspective of actually creating less non-games because of just mulligans, it works really, really, really well. Of course, it's still to be seen whether that's actually counteracted by having more non-games because of like more consistent stupid openings.
I mean, it sounds like the decks you guys are playing are not you're not going to be able to tell because you guys are just going to have more fun. You know?
No, I'm telling you that the inherent intention of having less non-games, that works really well.
But you were playing decks that you weren't like you said you weren't playing against Chalice or combo decks.
Yeah, that's why I'm
those
saying
are the decks
I don't know whether it's actually going to be counteracted, but the actual mechanic of having a new mulligan rule that gives
it's definitely going to make your hands better on average for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be absurd. Like you really want to play. Think about it. Like, do you as the Elves player want to play against Reanimator that never loses game one?
I think that's fine. Overall,
you think that's fine?
Yeah, I think Elves, is one of the decks that will actually benefit the most. Maybe that's why I'm so biased towards the rule, but I think Elves is one of the decks that will benefit. Probably it's among the top 5 decks in Legacy to benefit from this rule. Because Elves is so horribly at mulliganing. Like, it's at a point where I sometimes wonder whether we should change up the entire mana base, because I've played a lot of decks and I've been playing Legacy for a while, and Elves is by far the deck that mulligans the worst, and that's why I'm probably so biased towards the rule.
So, Eric, you make a good point about Reanimator. Game 1, it feels like Game 1 right now, you basically only lose if, your opponent has, double Force of Will, or if you, mulligan down really low.
Yeah.
Then that,
I really think that the Game 1 win rate is going to go from, 80% to, 95%.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. So yeah, that means you really just need to steal one of the sideboard. It just the problem is it just makes it so lopsided that it's just game 1 you're going to be so favored, and game 2 you're probably going to be very behind. I
don't know about that though, because the only thing that I'm really concerned about there is that I'm not going to know what my opponent's playing more than half the time.
Well, that's a nice problem.
So it's going to be harder to sideboard. But if I know what they're playing, I know what I need my hand to look like, right? So my mulligans are going to be pretty strong still, right? And I know that a blue deck is going to, unless it changes,
they'll
probably going to be looking for Forcible and
Surgical,
right? And then the non-blue decks are going to have Leyline. And I have 6 answers to land, so I'm going to need to. It's going to be a lot easier for me to mulligan to my Leyline answers plus combo.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll definitely be. I think that's the stress test. It's a deck like Moonstompy and a deck like Black Red Reanimator. Those are the 2 stress tests I think that need to be tried.
Yeah, I mean, if Death and Taxes and Goblins are fighting with the new mulligan rule, I think everybody's just going to be having more fun, which is great. But I don't think that that's even in question. I think the question is, like Bob just said, it's the Chalice decks and the.
But to be perfectly honest, Entomb is a totally messed up Magic card, and it used to be banned. If Entomb is the only thing holding back this new mulligan rule, and then it's fine for Chalice decks, I could be for the rule, and they just eventually ban Entomb or something.
Heard me here first. Entomb is gonna be the next thing Bob is aiming for. By the way, Bob, what's the best deck in Legacy right now?
Oh man, I wish I knew. I thought it was Storm. Cyrus. Cyrus had really strong finishes with it. It's won a bunch of MTGO challenges. Although so is Sneak and Show. So the combo decks are just very good. But I thought it was Storm especially because with the meta shift, if we can consider it to be real, I just think in paper people love to play these bad, what I call bad blue mid range decks. I consider Daze decks and Miracles to be the best blue decks in Legacy, and then all the other crap people play, I just consider them to be okay decks that people just like to play, but I don't consider them to be generally the best thing to be doing. But people love playing those decks, so there's just gonna be so much Stoneblade, and Storm destroys Stoneblade so hard, and it also is very, very good against depths. Right now, Storm sideboards are literally playing 6 bounce spells just to beat Chalice, because that's their worst matchup, and then it just lines up so well against Merit Lodge. So I thought Storm would be great, so I tested it a lot this week. My win rate is pretty bad, but a lot of it is losing to punts, and then a lot of it is losing to the Magic Online player who knows there's a lot of Storm and then just plays spheres in their depths deck, which is very uncommon, stuff like that. So there's definitely way more hate online, so it could still be good, and I need to play better. The other thing about Storm is it's by far the most punishing deck I've ever played. Like, usually when you play Delver, if you make a mistake, you might be, like, down a card, and that sets you back, like, I don't know, 10, 20 percentage points. But when you misplay with Storm, you often just, like, discard your hand, lose the game immediately, go home and cry. So it's definitely a very difficult deck to play. And it could potentially still be one of the best decks, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to play it at a proficient level before the GP, even with a month to prepare.
Maybe you should take some coaching lessons from Cyrus.
He did coach me through a league, and we 5-0'd, so that was my only 5-0. That was my only 5-0 with Storm.
Cyrus played the deck and you watched.
Basically, he made these cosmic galaxy brain lines that I was like, whoa.
Did you actually see the thing he posted? This what he played a match against me, and from my perspective, I'm trying to come up with it. What is his Twitter? Cyrus CG. And it was such a weird line from my perspective. Okay, account is blocked, so it's probably not that one.
The one where he was playing around Mindbreak Trap?
Yeah, that was a Galaxy Brain line, because I was like, I knew he had Cabal Ritual, but he didn't cast it, and later on I found out he was playing around Mindbreak Trap, and I think even Surgical or something. Like, he was playing around so many things by doing such a lot of people on Twitter, nobody realized it until he actually pointed it out, and that was super deep. I think I might actually link it in the show notes on the website, because that was...
I would like those are the kinds of lines that you don't see until you lose to it once, and then you're like, well, you think back and you're like, well, did this hand actually have any way of beating Mindbreak Trap? And the answer is like, a very small amount of the time the answer is yes, but it's something that you don't even like think about. Like, most of the time you're just like, well, if they have it, they have it, but like now it's something that, like, you know, I'll potentially look for. But it's definitely, you need a ton of experience. Like, he was basically like giving me these lines where it's like, oh, you do this to play around Surgical, like you play Tutor, and then you in response you play Cabal Ritual, so that they don't like piracy charm you when we were playing against Infect. And I was like, what? Like, you're definitely correct, but it's not something I would like ever think of in a million years. So yeah, I don't know. It definitely takes a lot of experience.
I've seen similar lines with elves where you go like, where you can technically remove the hate bear and then go natural order, but actually the correct line is to go natural order, response, kill your hate bear, so in response you don't like make me discard or like click away my natural order. Those are some lines, like you mentioned, you have to lose to it once to be able to play around it.
Yeah.
Two more things I want to talk about. First of all, Eric has shaken up Legacy again.
Yet again.
Yeah.
with a bad blue deck.
Whoa.
As is tradition.
But Bob calls every deck bad if he doesn't 5-0 the first time he plays it. Yeah.
Right, Magic at MTG Goldfish refers to it as blue-black control, but that's not the name you have like bestowed upon the deck, Eric. What do you?
Yeah, the deck is called TET, or the Epic Thief. Sorry, I almost said the wrong word. I mean, they're not wrong.
Has a website too.
Yeah, it does have a website. It's theepicthief.com.
I can't believe you actually got that domain.
Why? Why would I not make a website for such an amazing deck?
That's true. Theepicthief.com. Check it out. It's the new big thing in town. If you want to send donations to Eric to run that website, there's probably a way to do it. Hit him up on Twitter.
Yeah, you can check out my Twitch. You can donate there.
You should actually have a donation page on The Epic Thief, do you not?
To be honest, I canceled the. It'll be up. I don't know for how long, but I'm not actually planning to.
I'm actually gonna grab that domain and I'm gonna link to, I don't even know.
Yeah,
something. But for anyone who's living under a rock, I guess you say in English. In German we say behind the moon. The deck list, it plays 4 Baleful Strix, 3 Snapcaster Mages, then like 6 Planeswalkers, like 2 Liliana of the Veil, 2 Liliana Last Hope, 2 Chase the Mind Sculptor, then all your blue stuff. But apparently, Brainstorm, Ponder, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Thoughtseize, 4 Hymns, 4 Force of Will, then a mana base that has 2 Wastelands, and the one card that actually makes or breaks the deck. Like, Eric has been looking around Legacy for a very long time until he came to the conclusion that for 3 mana, you want to cast Thief of Sanity. And if you don't know what that card does, it's a colorless, a blue and a black, 2/2 flying, and basically whenever it deals damage to the opponent, you get to look up their top 3 cards, exile 2 of those, Actually, you exile one of those, and you can play that, I think, until the end of the game, and you can spend your own mana as mana of any color, and the other two remain exiled. And yeah, you have done some pretty obscene things. Like, I've seen you use the card in a very efficient way against Storm. Can you tell us about that?
All right, well, against Storm, the deck really, I mean, the card Thief of Sanity really shines against Storm.
The 3 mana sorcery.
You can do all kinds of really cool stuff with Storm's cards against them. For example, you can use their tutors to tutor up more Force of Will, so that you end up with like 4 Force of Wills in your hand, and they're not playing Therapy anymore. So that's pretty good. And also you can just exile Tendrils of Agony and they can't win, or you can exile Tendrils of Agony and a bunch of mana and kill them with their Tendrils of Agony, which I've done a couple times, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But generally, the reason it's actually good against Storm is because every other card in their deck, other than those things, are cantrips and discard, which are great against Storm. So you just get card advantage, and the card's really good. It's also good against... it's good against most Legacy decks. There's only, like, some cards that are not good, and that's, like, Green Sun Zenith, Chalice. I mean, you can even find use for Chalice, because once you're, like, pretty deep in the game, you could set it on a number that's not, 1. So, the card... I mean, the reason I play the deck... So, Thief of Sanity... I first played in Black-Red Reanimator sideboard, because I looked at this card and was like... I was like, this has got to be the most fun thing you could possibly do in Magic, is to kill your opponent with their own deck, right? So I put it in the Black-Red Reanimator sideboard, and I 5-0'd with it, and I won a game where I killed an Eldrazi player with like 3 of their Eldrazi's, which was sweet. But it wasn't good enough, obviously, to play blue, so I got rid of it. Then I tried to make a deck with it, with like Noble Hierarchs and stuff, and that deck was terrible. Really, really bad.
That actually was my first thought. Can't we just play like Bug, Thief of Sanity, Turbo Thief or something?
Yeah, that's what I tried, and it was awful.
So the thing with the card is, like, the reason it works in Tet is that you have a bunch of discard to kind of clear the way, and, like, your opponent will be on few resources, and then you can, like, kind of get the thief through much more easily. And that's why, like, turboing it out isn't necessarily the best strategy, but, like, protecting with discard and taking a slower game is usually better.
So basically the idea behind this is like both players lose almost everything, and then you have this one guy who actually creates card advantage in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't working exactly in the turbo version, and actually it was Callum Smith, the guy who played Phoenix in the challenge and got second place. Phoenix was invented by LSV, though, right?
Right.
This is the joke. Anyway, he said, "Why don't you try blue-black control?" And then I looked at some blue-black control decks, and the one that people have been doing pretty well with recently is like Yuriko, which I think is not very good.
I see a lot of similarities.
And they're playing like eight ninjutsu creatures. So I was like, wow, that if we put 3 thieves in this deck, that opens up so many slots to put like better cards in the deck.
Yeah. No, Yuriko itself is definitely really, really powerful, and it's obviously like good with Baleful Strix and Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah.
So I think it has potential there, but like Thief is also doing something very similar.
Yeah.
Yuriko does like a lot more damage, but you also, I think you need to connect with a creature. So it's
also missing like the Thief of Sanity can attack. It can attack a deck in a different way. Like the Yuriko deck really only attacks by having card advantage. Like it just gets more and more and more and more cards, right? Like that's what it does. And then like Yuriko can deal some extra damage, but it's not like, like I said, like you're not exiling Tendrils of Agony, or you're not drawing more discard and things like that, or like using somebody's Abrupt Decays to kill a ley line or a library where you don't actually have any answers to library,
Yeah, that's fair. It opens up options in their deck while still having access to what's in your deck. Yeah. So, I think we talked about this briefly, but there's a couple steps we could go with Thief. The most obvious one is just, like, make it into a Grixis control deck. Like, add Kolaghan's Command. That card's just insane with Baleful Strix and Snapcaster Mage.
Make it more clunky.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is definitely clunky, maybe we can play more 1-mana discard, like maybe Inquisition or something. But I don't know. There's definitely different ways we can go with it.
I think if you want to put against command, you probably have to cut back on some of the planeswalkers.
Maybe. I actually cut down to 1 Liliana the Veil. I think 1's enough. The cards, a lot of people were saying maybe it's not good, but I think it's quite good, but I think one might be enough. But I really think that the reason the deck works is because of Hymn to Turok. Like, Hymn to Turok seems super strong against everything, so...
him is just like been one of my favorite cards. Like him, I win. The problem with him in Legacy is that like there are some decks that just get under you. So like the Chalice decks and Delver, that's where him doesn't shine. Basically, is when they.
Well, I mean, Delver though, you just keep casting him, and then you kill their Delver, and hopefully you're not at like 3 or 4 lives, and then you're not gonna lose from there.
Yeah, I mean it does
Chalice,
depend.
Chalice, you kind of have to counter it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does depend because, like, if the Delver list has, like, Gurmag Angler, like, that's a card that Grixis generally struggles to deal with. Like, you have, like, maybe Edict and Baleful Strix, but they have a lot of removal for Baleful Strix. So I think it definitely depends on, like, what's happening. But him is okay against Delver, but I definitely think it's, like, where it's kind of the weakest.
Yeah, I mean, you are taking hits usually when you're casting it, but I've found that if you have, like, a Fatal Push in your hand and like a Force of Will or something, and you draw him, you just keep casting those hymns and then you deal with the stuff that's left over.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if they get like a True Name or something, that's why I like Liliana the Veil, because then it's like, okay, you have a couple of answers to like if they snuck some like really hard to deal with threat in, you have 2 or 3 answers to it at least in your deck.
So to anyone listening right now, Eric, give us 3 reasons why you would want to play this deck. And like 2 or 3 reasons why you don't want to play this deck.
Well, the main reason is, like I said, I don't think you could do anything more fun than kill your opponent with their own deck. And like I was shocked that it worked, to be honest. Like I said, I've been trying it in different stuff. I even played one in the Grixis Phoenix deck in the main for a while, just because the card is so much fun. I 5-0'd with it too, but it didn't get published. But it was so bad in that deck. It just didn't work at all. But this list, it actually worked. Like the hymn plan, and then having like answers to pretty much everything. There's a few things you just don't have answers to because in the 2 colors, which you could try splashing red instead of Wastelands, but I haven't really tried it yet. I'm sure some people have. Actually, Solnox said
Solnox 5-0'd with Culligan's Command.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely one way you could go. But what was I saying?
You were trying to convince us why you...
Oh yeah, it ended up just being way better than I thought it was going to be. Like the shell is just a bunch of really good cards in 2 of the best 2 colors in Legacy. And then Thief of Sanity actually does stuff, which I think like things that True Name Nemesis wouldn't do. For example, our Gurmag Angler. Gurmag Angler might close out some games faster, but it also might just get brickwalled by Young Pyromancer or blockers, things that block like Strix, or combo. It's just better against a lot of stuff than like a Gurmag Angler is or a True Name Nemesis. So it ended up being better than I thought it would be, and yeah, so it's fun to play and it's better than it looked.
Okay,
and
now tell us why Rudy actually didn't win SCG Syracuse with it. Like why? Where are the shortcomings of the deck?
Because Rudy wasn't Eric.
Yeah,
that would have helped, I guess.
No. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask Rudy why he didn't win, but that's a good question. Rudy, why did you not win SCG Syracuse? I'm confused. I mean, he started out day 1 really, really well at like 7-0 or something like that. The deck's really good. I mean, obviously, like I 5-0'd the first 2 leagues I played with it, and I only lost 1 game in both of those leagues. So,
but I think you also 5-0'd with Soul Sisters recently.
That was a lot harder, and it was not my first. That was like really, really, really hard, and took me like 5 tries.
Oh wow! But yeah, once again, what is the deck? Actually, straightforward. What is the deck really bad against?
What is it really bad against? I've only played against Eldrazi once, and it was extremely difficult to win the 1 game that I won. So that seems potentially hard. Other than that, you can get mana screwed. You can get stifled or wasted out of the game.
Right now
or you could have your opponent
like
play like 3 Nimble Mongooses that you can't answer, like the 3rd one, things like that. But I mean, in the metagame, I actually think it's pretty good. So.
But you still would play Black Red Reanimator. Like, are you going to the GP, by the way?
No.
No?
I'm not. No.
Sad.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I mean, so recently I was off Black Red for a little while, and I've been playing it again and been doing really, really, really well with it again, which is nice because, like, for example, the other day somebody blind named Thief of Sanity with their Cabal Therapy, and then I killed them on turn 1 with Great. So it's like I've trained my opponents to not think I'm on Black Red every single round, you know. So that's been really helpful for me.
That
I
makes
certainly
sense.
experienced that when I played Merfolk, and people were like, Iona on green, like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Turn one Iona on green, go. All right.
Yeah, that's why, like, when I play people, I try to remember, like, what they've played recently, but I always keep in my mind that they may not be playing that, you know? Like, you can't just, like, auto keep everything based on, like, your previous experience with that opponent, you know?
So, one more thing. Before we close out the podcast, let's talk about the elephant in the room in Legacy, and that is the power of Armadillo Cloak. What do you guys think about the Armadillo Cloak deck?
Hold on, I need to look at this. Oh my god. Wow, I'm looking at this monstrosity. So he's playing Sylvan Plug, which, by the way, for those who don't know, it is a Chalice deck that plays main deck Choke typically. It's like a Green Sun Zenith, Mox Diamond, Ancient Tomb Chalice deck, and it works because of Green Sun Zenith. But most of the targets you get off Green Sun Zenith are like pretty bad. So I'm like a little bit skeptical about the deck. But he's playing main deck Engineered Plague and Armadillo Cloak, which I just cannot fathom. I mean, you have Sylvan Library, and like, okay, so here's one thing that like I did notice is like -1/-1 effects are amazing in Legacy right now. Like the blue-red Delver deck is like based around Young Pyromancer. Yeah, I guess you probably don't want to hear this as an Elves player, but it's excellent against Young Pyromancer, True Name Nemesis, Death and Taxes, Elves. It's also even good against the Slow Depths deck because they play so many Safekeepers and Bobs and Hexmage, and their whole deck also dies to -1 effects. So I was like trying to think of a way to like, I don't know, maybe build Miracles with Zealous Persecution, because it's also really good with Mentor, or just like basically just kills them. But I couldn't really think of too many things, but I do think -1/-1 effects are like some of the best effects for removal spells in Legacy right now.
I don't understand. So I played against this deck like 5 or 6 times with the Epic Thief, and I won all of them. So, well, okay, I might have lost one to anyway, I played against this player on the Magic Online thing like 5 times, and I beat them like 5 times.
He's John Mario Kart. He's pretty good.
John Mario Kart.
And I thought this deck was like specifically made to try and beat blue decks. So I was wondering about that. Like,
yeah, that's where when it came about. Like, it was created when Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise had like their heyday in Legacy. And like Bob mentioned, it used to play 4 main deck Choke, and 4 main deck Obstinate Bailiff, and 4 main deck Sylvan Library, and it really preyed on blue decks. And these days they dropped the chokes because like blue is not as dominant as it used to be back then, but they still have like the disruption suit of like Chalice of the Void, Trinisphere, and they don't even have like a Stumpy mana base these days. I think Lee Che actually mentioned on Facebook that he dropped that, so he's only working off Mox Diamond. So in a way they're like a 2-color version, or is it even 1? No, it's a 2-color version, 3-color version, I guess, of 4-color Loam, but no Loam, so they dropped all the bad shit. And like I think Sylvan Library is a major reason why the deck kind of works, because you do lose some card advantage with like Mox Diamonds, but Sylvan Library and the extra life gain of Obstinate Bailiffs after sideboarding, that also like helps quite a bit. Oh, they have 4 Engineered Plague after sideboarding.
4 Sylvan Library seems like so crazy to me.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the deck actually. Like getting that turn 1 Sylvan Library, that's a huge thing. They are trying to maximize the awesome draws they can get of Mox Diamond.
So obviously I understand like Library's good, but it just doesn't make any sense if they're playing black. Like, is Bob not good? Like, I heard that card was also good.
It's slow though.
Yeah, but
so is Sylvan Library.
No, it's like the same as Sylvan Library. Like the weakness of Bob is like if your deck is high CMC, so like Grixis Delver, I think Bob's bad because of the high CMC, and Phoenix, I'm also like it's also not as good because of the high CMC.
That's true, but most decks in Legacy, especially in the first game, they have a very hard time dealing with Library as opposed to Bob.
Yeah, but that's why you also play Chalice. So, I mean, obviously, like, yeah, Bob has disadvantages too, but, like, I guess compared to 4-color alone, like, why does Bob work there and not here? I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be
I guess
both.
Library also works better with Curse of Crewfix.
Yeah, I mean, it does work better with Green Sun Zenith.
It works better with Course of Crewfix, but that card doesn't seem very good to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the entire deck, it plays Armadillo Cloak, guys.
That card seems
What are
great.
you gonna put that on? I guess if you put it on Knight and you give it Trample, and whoa, that sounds like a nightmare.
Isn't there an Armadillo Cloak that has lifelink instead of the weird wording on the Armadillo Cloak?
They reprinted it later on with another.
Oh, I don't
Wouldn't
know.
that just be strictly better? Or...
Wait, okay, guys, read the flavor text of Armadillo Cloak.
Don't laugh, it works. Oh my god. Are we being trolled?
We're being trolled right now.
That's great.
This is the next big thing for Legacy, right?
Oh my god.
I really want to play this deck now. This
I
feels
think
like
we just got
an awesome version
rickrolled,
of Maverick.
basically.
How would you feel?
I also love the list. It plays 2 Wastelands and 2 Ghost Quarters. It does play Ramanap Excavator, but I still think that's hilarious.
And Legacy All-Star, one off in the sideboard, Giant Solifuge.
Which I'm pretty sure that Lejay brought that in against me when I was playing Reanimator, which yeah, I'm sure he did because I was thinking about reanimating it, but he had a what's it called? Dryad Arbor in place. I was like, oh, okay, so maybe he's like on this like level of that I'm just, I can't quite understand.
So I'm wondering, and for those of you who don't know, it's Giant Solifuge, whatever, how do you pronounce that? It's like 2 colorless, and then 2 hybrid mana, a green or a red, so 4 mana total. 4/1, Trample, Haste, and Shroud. So it's basically like a weird version of Ball Lightning that sticks around. And
It
I'm
doesn't
wondering,
even seem that good against Miracles because like they have Snapcasters, but yeah, I don't know what it's for.
I'm wondering, is it the third best insect in Legacy right now?
Delver number 1.
Well, number 2, I would say.
Wirewood, Symbia. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And then, is it the third best insect?
I think we've gone. This is when we know we've gone too deep and too long on the podcast.
So what we're saying is that Engineered Explosives is getting better and better.
Engineered Plague or
Oh yeah,
Explosives?
Engineered Plague on Insect.
On Insect.
Yeah.
Oh, are we there yet? But yeah, I think that deck is a lot of fun, and Lee J, usually known to be quite the grinder and working out a lot of things. Maybe if you have a couple of tickets to burn, give it a try. Other than that, something we haven't really touched on, but I think let's see how it works out next week, especially in today's challenge. Death and Taxes, at least online, has put up really good numbers, but we haven't really seen those numbers at the SCG. So I'm wondering whether that's going to be a thing in the challenge. But
I think
guys, are you going to play the challenge?
Bob?
I just think Death and Taxes is like a very good deck, but it does require a lot of skill and like. For whatever reason, maybe those good Death and Taxes players didn't play at SCG Syracuse and they've been playing online. Like Thomas Enevoldsen, who is the best Death and Taxes player in my opinion, and arguably you can make the argument that he's the best Legacy player on the planet, given that he has a 76% win rate in GPs and he's top-8'd literally 6 challenges that he's played in a row. So I think he's like clearly one of the best. And it's crazy how good that deck is in the hands of a competent pilot. That being said, it has a couple weaknesses. One weakness is it can be hated out via cards like Dread of Night. The second weakness is it's not very good against combo, and it can like kind of pick and choose which combo decks it can beat. And then I think the third, the other metagame weakness I see right now is I think it's bad against Blue-White Stoneblade, and it's probably a little bit behind
against
versus
Blue-White Stoneblade, really?
I think so, because like that deck just has so many basic lands, and then True Name Jite is just like not what you want to be playing against.
True Name, period.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult for Death and Taxes. But definitely the GT is where things get super hard. But True Name is very difficult in general for Death and Taxes to punch enough damage through when they also have, they have other stuff as well.
So basically what Bob is saying, everybody in the US who's playing Death and Taxes is bad.
Well, Tenjum has also done well with Death and Taxes online, and he's in the US, but he's been playing online.
So people should be taking a vacation in Denmark.
I think
just
it was
watched
pretty
the
random
fair,
that
they
last
had, like,
week. So
and
many
they have
people are
like
playing Death
all
and Taxes.
kinds of weird things to advertise for the country. For example, if you go to the Argentinian booth, they've got Messi everywhere. It's like, hey, we are the country of Messi. Come to. And if you don't know Messi, that's like the best football player or soccer player, you would say, who ever lived on this planet. And so yeah, that like Argentina is like I think the 10th largest country in the world or something. It's like, yeah, come here, we have the best footballer of all times. Like, okay, maybe there's something else to see. Anyway, wrapping up, guys, are you playing in the challenge, Bob, Eric?
Oh yeah, I would like to end this podcast so I can build a deck to play the challenge.
I'm thinking about it. It starts in 20 minutes. I still have the whole. It's 10 p.m. here, and the challenge probably ends at like 5 a.m. But there is an
you're crazy if you play it, but
well, the thing is there's that upcoming the like what do they call it?
The format playoff.
The format thing. So if I want to play in that, I'm going to have to do a night like this. So I'm going to maybe see if I'm going to fall asleep in the middle of the challenge. So, I don't know. I have to decide in the next 20 minutes. I think I probably should just go to bed.
Awesome. So thanks for coming on today. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for tuning in. Once again, if you want to follow us, guys, where can people find you on social media? Bob?
I'm on Twitter at Grizzlepuff.
Are you on Twitch as well?
I am also on Twitch at Grizzlepuff.
Okay, and Eric, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter at EWLandon1, and I'm on Twitch at EWLandon.
Also, people, if you have a suggestion for a better nickname for Eric, send it to us at, I don't know, Julian at itsjulian.com, and I will gladly pass it along to Eric.
Wait a minute.
If you want to follow me, I'm itsjulian23 on Twitter and itsjulian on Twitch. If you have some feedback for this episode, we are always looking to get some feedback to that. Bob also reminded me I should be asking for donations here, so if you want to send some donations, no, because I'm eventually running out of email addresses to use for TriCast, which is the service we use to record this, and they only give you like a certain number of things. So it's only $10 a month, and if we can hit that, we could actually like stop making fake email addresses all the time. So if you want to do that, you can hit itsjulian.com. There's a donation button, and then in the notes just mention that it's for Everyday Channel. And everything else, we might actually, I don't know, maybe there's like a $1,000 donation coming in, and then we can actually buy proper microphones. But I guess you guys actually, like, I've been shouting at Bob to get a better microphone ever since the first season of the Legacy Premier League. And I think you're still using your laptop, are you not?
No, I have a headset now.
Oh, you're in the year 2019. Welcome to the future. Anyways, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again next time with Everyday Channel. Bye bye.